has been automatically placed on mute upon entry into the webinar. And throughout the presentation, only our panelists will be unmuted. Therefore, if you do have a question throughout the presentation, please feel free to utilize the Q&A panel, which can be found at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Please feel free to submit your questions at any point throughout the presentation, and we'll pause as needed to field questions, as well as set aside some time at the end. If we don't have enough time to get through everyone's questions, we'll try to respond to as many questions as possible via email over the next couple of days. We encourage you to either ask questions or to simply share a comment with our panelists for today. The webinar will be recorded. The recording and slides will be made available to all registrants, and this will be posted to the National TA Center's temporary website. And toward the end of the presentation, we will provide a link to that website within the chat box so that you'll all have access to that. Can you go ahead to the next slide, Dantel? So today's webinar is one of a number of webinars being offered by the National Student Attendance, Engagement, and Success Center during 2018. The National Technical Assistance Center was launched in 2016 and is funded by the Department of Education's Office of Safe and Healthy Students. The mission of the center is to disseminate evidence-based practices and build on and facilitate communities of practice to help students attend every day, be engaged in school, and succeed academically so that they graduate high school prepared for college, career, and civic life. Next slide, please, Dantel. The two communities of practice referred to in the center's mission are focused on the 30 national My Brother's Keeper Success Mentor sites, as well as the many SIG and SIG-eligible schools throughout the country that are working to implement early warning system programs to address chronic absenteeism. Although we have unfortunately run into several unanticipated delays in launching the formal technical assistance website, we are pleased to announce that we anticipate this site being live very soon, probably later this spring. So today's webinar is being presented by Felicia Walker of the Everyone Graduates Center at Johns Hopkins University. Felicia is a school and student support services facilitator with almost 20 years of experience in the field of education, primarily in the area of school transformation and dropout prevention. She works with K-12 staff who are developing and implementing multi-tiered systems of support, including early warning systems. Ms. Walker also provides training and supervision for talent development secondary staff at Johns Hopkins and oversees school transformation facilitators at schools across the nation. Felicia, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and pass things over to you.
Thank you so much, Veronica, and thank you all for joining today. We're going to look at looking at early warning systems, not so much as the content, but once you have the content and data, how do you actually go about displaying that in your school and classrooms? So let's look at the physical space in schools. Do any of you have the following activities happening in your schools? And if you're not at a school every day, think about the schools that you may visit periodically. Are these types of things happening? Not just during the first few weeks of school, but are your efforts and the efforts of the physical space, are they being addressed on an ongoing basis? If so, what types of information are you sharing? Do you have information in your hallways that is positive and motivating? Do you have quotes? Do you have nice visuals and bulletin boards? Just think about that for a few minutes. One of the things we're going to talk about today is how you can go about doing that in a way that's not going to take a lot of time. And then for some of you that like and enjoy doing things of this nature, we'll talk about other ways that it could take a little bit of time, but it's always worth it in the end. Next. So what I want to start with is a sample of a college-ready board that we were helping a school develop. And what they wanted to focus on was students being college-ready. So it wasn't just going to a bulletin board and pulling things up, but it was more so is, what do you want it to look like? And the first thing we always suggest is that you have a short, catchy title. So their title was, Are You College Ready? And they used the picture of the brain in the center just to grab the attention of people passing by. And they decided that they wanted to stick with the key components of information that they wanted to share, which included a little bit of content knowledge about what it means to be college ready, and then to also offer college knowledge about what colleges expect to see when you're college ready as it relates to college behavior and also key cognitive skills. And one of the other things when we thought about the process, because we like schools to consider a plan, not just jumping in, starting to paste things on boards or staple them up, but to actually have a plan of what you want that end result of the board to look like. And this provides an idea of how it will look, and it also tells you if you're going to get the information across that you set out to relay or capture. An additional idea that we shared once we started putting this board together with the school that we were assisting was to help beautify the school even more. We suggested them to hang college ceiling tiles that created a college prep atmosphere. So as the kids walked down the hallways, not only were they introduced to a board that talked about college ready, but they also had examples of local colleges as well as colleges from all across the United States that these students showed an interest in. Next. So how do we go about making early warning systems visible, and why? Well, first of all, we want to make sure that the information is current and accurate when we post up data as far as the early warning indicators, which includes attendance, behavior, and course performance. And you want to post it throughout the building, because when people come, whether they're coming from the district, whether they're parents, whether they're your own students, or just stopping by because they're in the community, you want them to understand what are early warning indicators and what is your school focusing on. So you want also that if you've acknowledged or recognized any students for their good behaviors or grade levels, you also want recognition captured visually and posted. What you want to achieve at the end is you want someone to know, as they walk in your building, would anyone know that we're even focusing on early warning systems? Is that part of your school's practice? And we're talking about, like I said, students, parents, and other staff. If so, would they be able to see it visually? How is your school doing with the indicators? How is your average daily attendance? How are your referrals and behavior? And how are students doing in course performance in your school? Are students, parents, districts, reps, visitors able to see individuals getting recognition for their achievements? Or is your school showing progress? And if so, would I be able to tell that just by looking at the walls in your building? These are just a few reasons why it makes sense and matters to make EWS visible in your schools. Next. So the analogy that I like to use when I'm talking about making early warning systems visual is thinking about a jigsaw puzzle. What steps might you normally take when you're about to put together a puzzle? What frustrations might you encounter when attempting to put a jigsaw puzzle together? I relate this to schools implementing early warning systems. What indicator are you focusing on or going to focus on? Imagine knowing little to nothing about early warning systems and being asked to task it or to be a part of the process. It would be better to know exactly what does it look like? What indicators are we focusing on? How will I know if we're achieving progress or if we're making success? What are the goals and the benchmarks for success? And I think would a beautiful, engaging, informative data display get people's attention about early warning systems? Absolutely. And we're even talking about the students. So just like a jigsaw puzzle, not being able to see the big picture can be very frustrating. Not understanding a school's big picture for implementing early warning systems can be just as frustrating as well, because you'll start to ask, where do we start? What are we creating? And how do we put the pieces together to make sure that early warning systems is successful? Next. So let's talk about how we can do this and not spend much time, but make early warning systems visible. And the thing I like about data display boards is they can be simple or complex. It just depends on how much time you have. And it tells really who you are, what are you focusing on. And it also gives visitors, students, parents, as well as other staff members, an idea of what's actually happening throughout the school. And guess what? It's without verbally stating it. What are your walls saying? So if you're in a building and you work in a school every day, what are your walls saying? If you're implementing early warning systems, would I be able to tell that just by walking in the building? Or is it only discussed when we're having our teacher meetings? Next. So to get started, what I would like to share, and as Veronica stated, this PowerPoint will be available after the call, so you'll have access to this. Some of the things that we would like you to look at is you must first have access to data in order to display it. So this rubric here is what we provide to schools so they can see exactly where they are with data and possibly where they would like to see their schools in the future. So you can rate yourselves as initiating the process, emerging, progressing, or excelling. But it's a lot of good ideas to consider as you look at how is data displayed or not displayed in your school. Next. So we're going to look at a variety of different boards today and different ways to display data. Some will take a lot of time, some will take little to no time, and the great thing is that everyone can start somewhere. And that's the idea of sharing this information with you today, that whether you are the artistic type or not, it doesn't matter. You can start somewhere with showing early warning systems throughout your school. So this chart here includes attendance, behavior, and course performance, which we spoke about earlier as the early warning systems indicators for one section of students. So this did take some time, and it needs to be updated weekly as you see the displays. And it describes multiple focus areas. So if I were to walk in this building, I could quickly see how the sixth graders are doing in attendance, behavior, and also in their course performance as well. Next. Here you see an attendance display of data, and it includes the goal, which is so important because sometimes students would not know what is my goal, what should I be reaching for as far as average daily attendance or weekly daily attendance. What does success look like for my school? So looking at this board with the attendance goal, it helps and it gives a clear picture of what this school is actually trying to achieve. And this particular board, it includes and compares each grade from month to month, and it provides a summary of the overall school's progress as well. So if you look, you can tell that it also gives little shout outs about most improved. As you can see in this example, most improved attendance was for the 9th grade, and best grade attendance was for 12th graders. Next. Another form of displaying attendance is from another high school, and this one, the thing that I like about this one is the way that it displays the legend to the side, and it also, again, tells students and visitors, what are we shooting for? So they're shooting for a 96% average daily attendance. That's very clear, so anyone coming into the building can understand what the goal of the school is for their ADA. And also for students, what does the colors mean? I like the fact that they have a key because it defines what's a red ball, what's a yellow, and what's a green ball. And those are our on-track and off-track and sliding indicators for early warning systems. So this one here, again, it gives you each grade level, and then it also gives you the whole school at the bottom. Next. This display here it includes a multiple board of information, and this is actually from a middle school. It displays the attendance in all 3 tiers of progress in just one board. So if you look to the left, you'll see the whole school, what their tier 1 data looks like. In the middle, you have each teacher's data or a form of tier 3, and to the right, you have for each grade level or tier 2. So at one glimpse, one board, you capture how the school is doing in different tiers as it pertains to their attendance and achieving their goal. So their goal, as it states, is 95%, and you can tell very quickly whether or not they're achieving that. And then they also have a highlighted teacher in the middle. That was the teacher who had the highest attendance for that period. Next. So the previous few slides talked about and showed you different examples of boards that had a lot of information, that talked about multiple tiers, or it talked about one focus of early warning systems in different ways. So I'm going to go through and just share with you some of the simple to complex ways to display early warning system data. So this one here was from a high school. It took less than 10 minutes, and I'm not sure exactly when it's updated, but it does show me if I'm walking into the building that they're focusing on attendance. It's neat, it's easy to read, and to me, this is a one person's job, and it still gets the job done, even though it doesn't have as much information as the slides before had on their slides. And this is what they started with when they started to try to make displaying early warning systems visible. Next. So this one here is a middle and the high school, they're feeder schools, and this example shows how in the middle school they decided to start off the process, because what they wanted to do is they wanted to get the students as well as any guests and other staff members involved in them tracking their weekly attendance data. So to the left, you'll see the middle school started, and they begin the process where it looks nice, it's visible, and it was another opportunity for students to transition with some familiarity from seeing the boards displayed in middle school, again, when they get to their high school feeder school. Next. So this example here, it took even less time than the ones I showed you before, and it actually shows all three indicators, and it tells the story quickly of how students are doing in their attendance, behavior, and course performance. And each teacher actually can print this information out from their data system. So my goal is to share you how this task does not have to be time-consuming and that everyone in the school can participate as long as they have access to data. No artistic talents needed, and you'll see as we go through the next few slides that there's various ways that this can be accomplished. So students here, their records are displayed with non-identifiable codes, of course, and they aren't using any names, but quickly students can recognize who they are, and they can look at how they're doing in attendance, behavior, and course performance. Next. So this one here is one of my favorites, where they use Post-its to show the progress, and that's how simple it is. So they are achieving the goal of displaying data visually, and it's by grade level attendance. And pretty much you can see their attendance goal was 82% at this time. And it quickly asks, when do you come to school? And it was done for 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So very, very quick and very easy to do. And again, not very, no artistic skills needed. Anyone can do it. Next. So these boards, they are charting their daily attendance, and they're placed outside of each homeroom, and they're completed daily. And so it just takes a few seconds to do a percentage calculation, and then they color in the bar graph according to the number of students who are present versus the number of students who are actually enrolled in the class. And this is another way, and this is done at the elementary K-8 school, where you can get students involved in the process and explain to them how important coming to school daily is at an early age. And it's a very simple process. Next. So the next few slides are from schools that wanted to acknowledge students individually for perfect attendance, with hopes of motivating others to get their pictures on the board as well. So a lot of schools tell me that when they start this out, it really captures the eyes of the students, because they too would like to see their picture on the board as well. So this one here is from one of the schools we work with in New York City, and they have what they call a perfect attendance wall, and it's actually groups of students who are pictured together and from different classrooms and different grade levels, and it's changed and updated on a monthly basis. Next. This school here is in New Mexico, and they do perfect attendance recognitions for each of the different 9 weeks. So this one here is a picture of the second 9 weeks. And as you can see, these students are individually pictured. And again, this is another way to motivate and encourage students to want to get their picture hung in lights, as you can often say. Next. And here's a middle school that was in Grants, New Mexico, and they again used their yearbook pictures to acknowledge students who had perfect attendance. So it wasn't even time consuming as far as going and taking each individual student's pictures, but these are pictures that they already had available on their database and were easily accessible, and they created their perfect attendance board in that manner. So as you can see, there's different ways to capture the same goal. Each one of the schools that I shared with you in the last previous slides, they were looking to show off the students and to encourage and motivate other students to obtain perfect attendance, but they all did it in different ways and they all did it in different times. So there's no right or wrong way to do it. Some schools will do the attendance update by 9 weeks. Some will do it monthly when they're talking about perfect attendance, but the thing is just starting somewhere and getting early warning system indicators visible in your building. Next slide. So this one here is from a high school that wanted to theme it. So what they did was they thought about what theme would be cool where we could display all of our indicators as we're working with early warning systems. And so what they did was they looked at their attendance, and then in some of the boxes they talk about behavior, but they are acknowledging the different grade levels, and they chose to do it by theme, and they said the kids loved it, it captured their attention, and they got a lot of questions from parents, which was also the purpose of making EWS visible, is so that parents can also ask questions and wonder, what does this mean? What does that stand for? So it started and generated very good, healthy conversations with parents and visitors as well. Next slide. Another cool way to decorate hallways is if you're not using the actual data from students, you can always use short sayings or quotes or statistics. So this bulletin board is located strategically at the top of steps at a middle school. And as soon as students come up the top of the steps, they'll see the bulletin board, "Are you at school? Then give yourself a round of applause." And their mascot has to do with paws, which is why they chose that. And so on each paw, there is a statistic about missing school and how those minutes and days add up and can impact you being promoted to the next grade or even passing your classes. So this information is very valuable, and some teachers in the beginning of the year even do little projects centered around what the statistics say, depending on the subject area that they teach. Next. In the beginning of the school year, we have multiple schools that do what we call a 20-day attendance challenge. And so again, this is a good way to display early on in the beginning of the year, as well as closing out the school year, of showing how important it is to be in school. And if you're missing school, you're missing out. So they use poster boards, they use different methods to get students engaged and to make it visible that they're concerned about students coming to school, not only for the first 20 days, but also throughout the school year. There's different initiatives that are done and planned. So this one here is from a middle school in Tulsa. And each year they started with this campaign, they've seen tremendous impacts in the number of students who actually can make that transition of turning off summer and turning on the school year. So these 20 days are filled with different prizes, giveaways, dances, and different treats just for showing up. So the word passes really quickly about how important it is to get to school those first 20 days. And then they've also capped it on the end of the school year as a countdown to keep students engaged throughout to the last day of school. Next. And so this banner here goes along with the 20-day challenge, and it allows the students to autograph, as you would say, their name to say that they're committing to pledge to come to school on time for the first 20 days and beyond. So it just doesn't stop after the first 20 days, but this is sort of getting the students in the habit of thinking and being engaged when they come to school. So students in each grade level, they just sign their name, and every time they're there, they're rewarded for being present, and they really enjoy these activities. Next. This board here is from one of our schools in Boston, and they dedicate an entire bulletin board that outlines what they're going to focus on as far as early warning system indicators for each month. They track the impact of each event, which is really cool. So where you see the marker written on the papers, those are events that at the time this was taken, that they had already accomplished. And so they keep tallies on how many students were eligible and how many students actually showed up. And this is something that they do every year, and they compare their results with the following year to see, are these events and things that students are actually engaged in? It's displayed very nicely. The students all see it when they come in, when they're coming in the hallways. The staff is aware of what's going on, and the teachers and staff, they also reinforce the information in their classrooms. But it's nice to be able to walk in a school and say, oh, okay, you're focusing on attendance for this month, or you're focusing on not being tardy. And this is what the connection is with the students and motivating them to want to be involved, to want to come to school on time, or to just be present. And so each one of these events are done on a monthly basis, and the students also have input through student surveys, because we want to know what is it that would motivate you to want to come to school. Next slide. So the next two slides are going to be a close-up of what's posted on the board. So this one was a November homeroom challenge, and they were trying to encourage all of their homerooms to achieve 94% or better in attendance. And the winner for this challenge received a pizza party. Next. So the next one, because this school is very big in basketball, so they took the concept of March Madness and they aligned it with their attendance. And we see this done different ways in different schools. But what they did was each week, homerooms would compete to try to make it to that final bracket. So various homerooms competed. Whichever homeroom had the highest average daily attendance for that day or weekly attendance, they would move to the next level in the bracket. And there were a lot of different things that were done during the month and leading up to the actual winner. And a lot of those were voted on by the students. So again, keeping student voice at the front of the decisions. And it wasn't always tied to, do we have the funding? Because a lot of things that the students wanted to do didn't really cost a lot of money or were given by donations. Next slide. So again, in a classroom, this teacher was making early warning systems visual, and this was actually a French class, and I was very impressed with the way that she took the on track and off track and sliding indicators represented by the red, yellow, and green, and was able to have students self-assess, how are you doing in my French class with this lesson? And so the students see this every day they come in. They have like a check-in and a check-out question, or an exit ticket, as some people will call it. And depending on how they do, how they feel they do, before it's even graded, they assess themselves, and she uses the descriptions below to help the students be able to see what level would you be in. And the students really like it because sometimes they do really good and they're excited, so they're novice and they're high. And sometimes it can also tell the teacher of things that she may need to go over again, or if students aren't sure if they're getting it. So I found this to be very impressive, as it was in a French class, and students were speaking a different language, and I actually got to witness students actually doing the activity of pacing themselves and grading themselves as to what they thought they had gained or needed assistance with. So this was something that was done right in the front of the classroom, and it's very visible. It speaks volumes to including students in the process, and the students really seem to enjoy it. Next. And here's another example of the attendance March Madness challenge, where it's kind of outlined a little more, where it tells you exactly what happens. But again, it was a bracket that was created in a hallway. And this is just the flyer that went with the bracket. And this was in a school in Baton Rouge. Next. So today I've shared a variety of different ways to visually display early warning systems, and I've tried to give you a little background information about why certain schools selected the board that they did. So with all of the examples that were shared of visually displaying data, what are your next steps? Well, I'm glad you asked. I challenge you to share the concept with your school, teams, just different people, staff, and provide data display picture examples, which you'll have here in this PowerPoint. And have the teams or challenge the teams to select one or two of the samples that they feel could be recreated or displayed in their classrooms, the hallway, or anywhere at the school. And again, it's not about being artistic, it's about starting somewhere and having access to data so you're able to display the correct information. And then challenge them to design a rough draft. And you can do that easily on chart paper. And that will cover what we talked about initially, which was part of the planning process. And then have them start to work on it. Set a timeline for completion. And if you want to make it a little interesting, hold a little competition. And that could be amongst schools, amongst grade levels, amongst departments. But what you want to do is make it fun. And you want to involve the students if necessary or if possible. Next. So I just want to share with you a process that I actually did with one of the schools that we were working with in New Mexico. And their teachers were very hesitant at first. They had a lot of wall space, and there wasn't a lot of information that was being shared with that wall space. So they wanted to also find a way to be creative to inform students and parents about their early warning system implementation and also about how their data was doing, because they were achieving good gains and also having great impact. So I facilitated a professional development, and this will be a year next month, on displaying EWS data. I individually met with each team. I challenged them, just like I challenged you, with creating a data display board for their team. And then I would follow up when I visited them again the next month. Well, the results were amazing. Each school team created a data display focused on one or more indicators. Over 20 teachers created displays not only in the halls, but they also did it in their classrooms. And several teachers were actually shocked that students were asking about the displays, which led to other good conversations about how important attendance, behavior, and course performance is, and how achieving different levels of attendance and behavior can promote you to the next grade level. And then they even also had a few parents to inquire about it as well. So now, because of taking on that challenge of creating data displays and making early warning systems visual, more of the students, parents, and visitors are aware of the school's goals, their expectations, and they either change them on a daily or weekly basis, depending on how often they update their boards. Next. So I just want to share with you some of those boards, some more additional ideas that hopefully you'll take back and share with staff or district reps at your school so you can possibly start getting early warning systems visual in your school. So the biggest learning technique when talking with the principal was that the walls were empty and now they're filled and they're colorful. And it was encouraging teachers and staff to be creative about how they displayed it. So teachers took on different forms, different ways. You could tell that there was a lot of thought put into the process, as you'll see as I share some of those boards with you. And it also achieved their goal of trying to increase student and parent awareness of what early warning systems are and how they're being addressed at their school. Next. So the school that I have to give credit to is Los Alamitos Middle School, which is in Grants, New Mexico. Next. So this board here was about always focusing on their homework. The school had a challenge of students not doing their homework. So the teachers got together in that moment when all your students turn in their assignments on time. So the reason why they chose Jolly Ranchers is because that was one of the top candies that the students wanted. So each week they would, period by period, determine which periods turned in their homeworks for which days. And as long as they all got greens, which meant that they all did, the students all did their homework for that class, the teacher took up time. She said it took less than 2 minutes to distribute Jolly Ranchers. And the big thing about this was there were a few rules, and that was that the Jolly Ranchers had to be eaten before class ended, and all wrappers must make it to the trash can. And kids really enjoyed participating in this initiative. Next. This board here explains the idea of what each early warning system indicator is focused on, and it informs each period how they're doing and also the team as a whole as well. So one of the things that are very evident is, what does attendance mean? It just simply means we are coming to school. Behavior, we're paying attention, and classwork, we complete and turn in our work. So right at a glance, when students walk in, they can tell how they're doing and how their period did versus other periods. So they wanted to stress in this one, again, turning in homework, because like I said before, that was a challenge throughout the school. And then it also focused on their attendance. So each day they would do the average of their attendance, and students were also up on that as well. Next. This was an example of another teacher way of expressing the same information. So again, they were focusing on attendance, behavior, course performance, and at this time, they were also working towards bonus points. So the graph to the far right tells you a little bit about what those rewards would be offered depending on how much the class achieved. And what I liked about that was it just wasn't a one prize for all, but it was more so different opportunities to achieve and gain success. So again, this is another way, same school, where teachers addressed making early warning systems visible. Next. And we're just going to go through a couple of more slides of the different examples. This one was for fourth quarter data. And again, they're focusing on all three indicators of attendance, positive behaviors, and course performance. And this one, they just were real creative because that is actually a slider that they can slide up and down as the students achieve different levels of success with the attendance, behavior, and course performance. Next. And this one here incorporated Pac-Man as they looked at the attendance for the different periods. And the Pac-Man is eating up the pellets and also showing at what percentage the students actually attended school for that day. Next. So I challenge you. I would love for you, as I stated before, to review this PowerPoint with others at your school or within your district, and then determine how will you display early warning systems visually. I would love to receive any pictures of the data display boards that you create, and I would kindly give credit where credit is due. Next. Thank you guys so much for participating in today's webinar, and I hope that you've seen or heard something that would ignite your desire to display early warning systems visually. Thank you, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you very much, Felicia. And definitely, if you folks have questions, we don't have any questions that have been submitted as of yet through the Q&A function, but we're definitely open to taking questions at this point since we have some time left in the hour. So if anyone has questions, please utilize that Q&A box at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and we'll get those over to Felicia so that she can respond to those. I also want to draw your attention to the URL link that I just posted in the chat box. This is where you will be able to find the recording of today's webinar, as well as all of the slides, as well as all of the recordings from all of our previous webinars that you can access there. There's also information up on the temporary website now about an event that we will be holding in May for the early warning systems and the Success Mentor community of practice folks that we have engaged through the center. This will be a two-day event on May 9th and 10th in Baltimore's Inner Harbor, and you can find out some more information on the website. Registration is not open at this point yet, but we'll be looking to get registration opened up within the next several weeks. But just want to draw your attention to that so that you can save the date. Definitely want to get as many folks there as possible. And I don't think, I'm just keeping an eye out for any questions that have come in here yet. I don't think we've gotten any. So at this point, I'll just do a final call for questions and thank everybody that participated in today's event, as well as thank you, Felicia, for your time and expertise and this valuable information. Again, if anyone has any questions for Felicia, you can certainly feel free to reach out to her directly at the email address on the screen on the slide that's pulled up right now. But other than that, thank you all for your participation today, and we hope to see you again on a future webinar. Take care.